Chapter 25, The Abandoned Office, one of the most peaceful levels you've seen in the Backrooms yet. I emerged inside of a dull, modern-day office building, stumbling forwards on the light gray carpet as I entered level 4. That was way too close, I muttered as I looked around me. I was inside of a meeting room that was made up of smooth white walls with a long black oval table surrounded by puffy black office chairs in the center, each seat equipped with a set of 4 wheels that branched off from a plastic tube that connected the support and the seating component together. The walls were a dull, pasty white, and the floor was covered in a thin, scratchy, light gray carpet. The ceiling was made up of white, spotted plaster tiles and was lined with rows of square white lighting panels that dotted the roof of the meeting room. Most of them were lit out. The air was a bit cold, and the smell of fresh leather and musty air conditioning exhaust lingered throughout the entire level. "Well, this place seems nice," I said softly as I stared at the 12-foot-long office table that sat in the middle of the room. I began to relax as the faint sound of rain tapping on glass windows filled my ears. I slowly slid the combat knife into my pocket as I walked over to the meeting tables and stared at the modern-style furniture that inhabited the room. "Are these level files?" I said as I grabbed the sheet of paper off the desk in front of me. "It's a journal entry," I mumbled as I looked at the sheet of paper in my hands. The height-wise edge of the paper was torn, as if it was ripped out of a notebook, and the writing was faded and scribbled in black ink. "I only realized the rain was cold due to the heat of my blood," I read aloud. "I had a strong ambition to keep going further, to not give in to my fears. As I strode onward, my eyes caught the rainbows hidden behind the heavy clouds of storm and rain." My eyes started to the bottom of the page, reading the last bit of text on the wrinkled paper. "Entry log 993, date unknown. I hope to get out of here soon." I stared at the last sentence, the thought of escape surfacing before being dragged down by fear and a lack of hope that there was ever an end to this level, this living hell. "Entry log 993. I said softly as I trailed off. The idea that there were more than 1,000 entries to this journal somewhere out there scared me. The fact that a person who got stuck here was here for over a year and possibly still remained somewhere out there in this reality sent chills through my body. "They could still be out there," I said nervously, doubt that there was an actual end to this world surfacing in the front of my mind. "Are there more entries? Am I not the only one stuck here?" I said as I set the paper back down in the exact place I'd found it, staring at the final sentence with rising dread and hopelessness as I stood in the middle of the room. "Maybe there's more file pages or something throughout the level," I said as I began to walk around the table, my mind racing with thousands of thoughts and questions as I blankly stared at the doorway ahead. I snapped out of it as I exited the meeting room, entering a massive empty area filled with random pillars and a multitude of large rectangular windows. "It really is raining," I said in awe, staring at the window across the room as I watched the raindrops race down the glass. The faint smell of rainwater filled the air as I looked around in amazement. "This place can actually experience seasons and weather cycles," I said in shock. The sounds of rain pitter-pattering against the glass filled my body with a sense of calm and tranquility. The constant white noise of rainfall bringing relaxation with it as it filled my ears. "This room is massive, but it doesn't have anything in it. It's actually kind of peaceful," I muttered as I looked around, turning my head as I searched the room for any resources or signs of life. The smooth, white walls that surrounded me made a sense of peace enter my thoughts, slowing the hundreds of questions that raced around in my head as I slowly walked over to the window. The light gray carpet was stiff and thin, my shoes drifting over it as I calmly walked over to the window at the far wall. The cool air mixed with the soft sounds of rain subtly caused me to relax. The tension that filled my entire body slowly fading as I stopped in front of the window. "Whoa," I said in awe as I looked through the window at what laid outside of these walls. The sky was a mystical wave of silvery gray clouds and wispy gray skies, a constant downfall of rain flooding the landscape as it raced from the clouds above. Sorry I'm reading it slightly incorrectly. I'm trying to read slower than I usually do. Back to it though. The air near the window was cold, and the smell of rainwater was stronger than ever as I stared through the translucent clear glass at the skies above. My breathing slowed and relaxed as my shoulders lowered, the remaining tension and anxiety in my body slowly drifting away as I watched the rain pour down from the silvery skies above. I stood in front of the window for a couple of minutes before slowly turning away, looking at the room I was in as I looked for another area to explore. The white fluorescent light tiles filled the room with a soft and tranquil glow, lighting up the pasty white walls and contrasting with the light gray carpet that made up the floor. "Is that a hallway?" I said curiously as I stared at the opening in the wall to my right. The modernistic, empty corridor seemed to lure me in as I began walking towards the doorframe that led into the empty hallway I had seen. "It is," I said happily as I speed walked over to the door, staring into the long corridor ahead as it stretched on into the distance. I smiled with relief as the feelings of stress and paranoia began to disappear completely for the first time in a long time, allowing me to fully relax for the first time in what felt like weeks. "There's doors! Wait, that means there's probably a lot more rooms to explore," I cried as I darted forwards, running down the empty corridor before slowing to a stop in front of a light brown wooden door. The brass door handle seemed to call out to me as I looked through the small window in the center right area of the door. The lights above me buzzed faintly as the distant sounds of rain kept my anxiety at bay. I glanced out at the long, wide hallway I was currently in, my eyes observing the smooth white walls and thin gray carpet as I experienced happiness and relaxation for the first time in weeks. In my month that I had spent here, I had never seen something like this. "Well, I guess I can search for stuff like almond water or file papers until I find something else to do," I said as I grabbed the cold brass handle and turned, unlocking the door as I stepped inside the small workroom. "Is that almond water?" I cried as I rushed over to the table in the corner of the room. The refreshing plastic bottle sat isolated in the center of the table, sitting next to a pile of papers that appeared to be a file log. "Oh my god, I needed this so bad," I said to myself excitedly, grabbing the clear plastic bottle from the surface of the desk as I happily accepted the cool, refreshing liquid. I hurriedly unscrewed the cap, bringing the bottle to my lips as the cold liquid instantly filled me with relief. I moaned softly, swallowing every drop of the cold and sweet refreshment as I held the bottle to my lips. The cold, refreshing sensation of the sweet liquid filled me with a pleasure as it filled my stomach, racing down my throat as it cooled my starved and dehydrated body. "Oh my fucking god, that felt so good. I haven't had this in so long," I said happily, screwing the lid back on the bottle as I looked around for some sort of trash can. For a level that seems to be entirely based around a modern office building, it sure lacks proper furniture and decoration, I muttered as I scanned the room for anything I could use to throw the empty bottle in. "Well, I mean, there's a flaw for everything," I said, frustration filling my voice as I placed the empty bottle back where I found it, leaving the plastic container on the black office desk as I glanced at the pile of papers that lay stacked neatly next to it. "This looks like an entry log," I said with a deep breath as I picked up the thin stack of file papers, my eyes blankly staring at paragraphs of writing that filled the pages. "Might as well get comfortable," I exclaimed as I pulled out the leather rolling chair, separating it from the desk as I plopped down on the comfy modern seat. "Let's see," I said as I scanned over the entry logs that filled the page, the scribbled words written in messy black text that closely resembled human writing. 20/11/1994, Saturday, 11:06 p.m. Running became my way to feel a sense of control in a life where I had nothing to begin with, converting all my emotional suffering and agony into miles just because I had the unlucky chance of getting stuck in this endless loop of ups and downs. Others, perhaps, could have gotten the chance to pick their position from fitting in or surrendering, but for me, what else was I supposed to do when the ground felt like crumbling just beneath my painfully aching feet, and the walls of burnt brown bricks narrowed ever so slightly around me? The electrical station's walls seemed as if they had stood for generations, keeping the interior sheltered from any signs of destruction. I stared at the words on the page, not knowing how to feel as I felt connections of what others experienced bridged between their existing experiences and mine. My eyes darted back down in the next paragraph as I continued reading. The feeling of genuine and sincere fear triggered this hell of a place, with everyone in it, to be buried underground and completely forgotten as time passed by. I could feel an overwhelming suffocation making its way to my face and throat, but I knew exactly why this was happening. Despite being chased by an entity I could not see, I tried to remain calm and regain my composure, closing my eyes and taking deep, slow breaths, even if the nightmares from the deepest reaches of my mind started to corrupt the scenery in front of me. I trailed off as my emotions and fears exploded into my mind once more, the entry log bringing back memories and horrible experiences I had been through so far. Well, shit, I muttered as I looked back at the page in my hands. I stared blankly at the next paragraph before snapping out of it, continuing to read as I explored other people's experiences and knowledge of this place as they lay sprawled out on a page in front of me. Sorry, hiccuped. Get to them before they get to you. That was always my mentality to overcome my trepidations. After all, your own thoughts create your immediate reality. People's fears are triggered by real threats and by memories of threats. Before anything, we must ask ourselves how the real threat is, or if we have begun to generalize fear and seek evidence to cement it, rather than challenge it. That's the rational way of solving an issue, but who thinks rationally, clearly and strategically, when you feel like breathing can cause someone to die at the very same moment? When you feel like your legs are going to betray you when you need them the most? How can you think with a clear, fresh mind about a future that seems so bright, positive, and close when the immediate, crude present lays bare at your feet, clawing your legs and never letting go, no matter how hard you try? I sat silently, letting those words sink in as I stared blankly at the wooden, black office desk in front of me. I gripped the thin stack of papers tightly in my hands, the words I had just read, aloud, sending millions of thoughts and answers to questions in my mind. So, I'm not the only one, I said softly as I glanced down at the file entry in my hands, reading it in whoever's voice I thought it might fit. I sat silently for a moment before I decided I wanted to continue reading, my eyes exploring the next paragraph as I read the entry aloud to no one but myself. My tired eyes dilapidated and dilated at the view of a generator-controlled door. I wanted to scream, cry out of happiness, call for help, or at least stop for a moment to catch my breath, but I couldn't. The stark contrast of the doors, light gray and dark blue, sent shivers down my spine as my chest felt like aching. My right hand moved without thinking, wrapping my fingers around its metallic handle and pulling the heavy door towards me. In the abstraction of the moment, I found myself on the other side of the door, the loud slamming of the ponderous door behind me making my eardrums feel like they were erupting on the spot. The mention of the heavy door sent a wave of realization through my body. That's kind of like the door I used to escape that electrical place. So it's not entirely random, I said as I trailed off, staring blankly across the room before restacking the papers and picking up where I left off. Oh my God, and I finally left that confined zone. This new area was akin to a warm welcome to a house filled with peace, a portal to a brighter state of mind. The doorway stood there as if it were an invitation to a new adventure, a new challenge, and a new chance to earn the merit of exploring further. Surprisingly, a musical vibration appearing to come from a small radio synchronized to the low, comfortable buzzing of unknown origin. I closed my eyes to hear it. My ears felt like capturing each note of this subtle and delicate tune, as if they were long since accustomed to fluorescent buzzing. I glanced up, my eyes darting away from the page as I listened to the subtle sound of rain tapping against the window. I relaxed a bit, listening to the calm and tranquil sounds around me before returning to read more. Beneath heavy eyelids, I let my eyes flutter open slowly again. A mellow, melancholic amalgam of colors, gray colors, ranging from charcoal to abalone, drowned the scenery before me. The only aspect that brought this life to empty office-like structures in the Fuck, I ruined it, dude. The only aspect that brought life to this empty office-like structure was the wispy, silvery skies outside the windows. The sweet music that maintained this sacred place's tranquility was suddenly replaced by the loud, pattering sound of rain on glass. Water drops bigger than prairie hailstones hit the surface of the windows. Is that rain? It's been so long since I've last seen daylight. The last sentence rang in my head, shattering almost every thought in my mind. As the thought of never seeing the light of day again hit me like a semi-truck. It's been so long since I have last seen daylight, I murmured, the words continuing to crush me down as the terrifying sentence sank deep into my mind. My eyes darted to the closed wooden office door at the other end of the room, the wooden doorway leading back out to the seemingly infinite office building. I shifted in the seat, growing anxious before jumping to my feet. I really like this place, but I want to leave. I can't stay here, I said as I placed the stack of papers back on the desk, leaving the depressing entry log behind as I hurriedly walked to the door. I should find a backpack and more food, too, if possible, I said as I pulled the door open, entering the hallway as the door hinges screamed, the door slowly closing behind me as I walked down the empty corridor towards the place farthest from where I came. Oh my lord. Anyways, I glanced through the small windows on every door as I walked past the hundreds of rooms and workspaces. Even though it's calm, I don't really want to get trapped here, and I don't know if there are entities in this place either. I glanced around nervously as I came to the end of the hallway, stopping in front of a beat-up metal door with a wire mesh panel window. Well, it's something, I said as I grabbed the large metal handle and pushed outwards. Struggling to push open the heavy metal doors, the hinges screamed. Whoa, I exclaimed as I entered a massive room filled with office cubicles. The infinite expanse of workspaces stretching on as the massive grade of white plaster tiles that held the lights filled the area with a dim white glow. There's so many, I said in awe, staring out at the massive maze of cubicles that sat in front of me. This place just never ceases to amaze me, I said softly as I walked through the door, entering the massive room as the heavy doors slammed shut behind me, shaking the floor as I stared out at my most recent challenge. Here goes nothing, I muttered as I walked forwards, entering the massive maze of cubicles as I entered one of the many sublevels within level 4.